One of my favorite facts about Peter Jackson, the guy who directed The Lord of the Rings, is how obsessed he was with tea. Jackson would literally drink 22 cups of tea per day, and he wouldn't just drink it off set or something. No, he would walk and climb around the sets with a full cup of tea, all the while managing to not spill a single drop. So when you look at it plainly, Jackson's habit makes him more interesting. But what if that was true for entire films? Shaun of the Dead is a movie that is made to be relatable. It portrays a world where even before the zombie apocalypse, people already acted like zombies. The main point of the film is about how Shaun has to wake up from that mundane reality and fight it, to conquer his inabilities and tendencies in order to save his relationship and his life. But what I noticed is that none of it would matter if you couldn't relate to him as a character before the apocalypse started. His problems would be meaningless if you didn't care about him beforehand. So we only need to look at the first scene of the film to understand the psychological trick this and every other film uses that makes you care. It starts with Shaun in a bar, obliviously drinking a beer while holding a half-smoked cigarette. It isn't anything pretty, but it tells us who Shaun is as a character. Not that he is lazy or bad, but that he is mindlessly going through life. Beer and cigarettes carry that connotation because in our life that is what we associate most with degeneracy, which stems from an inherent stereotype that anyone who spends their evenings in a pub is in some way unsuccessful. This scene itself is about something totally different though, because during it we are supposed to focus on Shaun's relationship. The pub is so ordinary that the meaning behind it doesn't really cross anyone's mind, so it is essentially an invisible, boring element that amplifies the story. But since I started this video with tea and not beer, let's jump forward to the next morning. Shaun and his other roommate make tea before work. As he eats his toast, they talk about how Ed needs to actually do something in the house, which is the point of that scene, but what you don't see is how the tea implies a relatively healthy life. The routine of making tea in the morning is, to many people, a good one. It shows that you have a clear mind and good taste. So when we see that in a film, those same attributes get projected on the characters. Ed doesn't have any tea because he is a degenerate. Shaun might be mindlessly going through life, but at least he has a life. Pete, his other roommate, is shown as having his life even more together. He could have just as well been in the pub, but he wasn't, and that immediately sets him apart from the others. And this is where I picked up on a theme that is present throughout the entire film, which is this battle between beer and tea. Let me explain. Shaun has to take his life in two directions. Either he gets rid of Ed and saves his relationship with Liz, who is represented with tea, or he dumps her and keeps living with Ed, who is represented with beer. It's the only thing we see him drink or really care about, whereas Liz is the opposite. She wants Shaun to stop smoking, and while we don't see her drink tea directly, we see Shaun drink it whenever he is doing proactive things that might or might not save his relationship with her. Therefore, we don't have to see her literally do it, as we can see her with Shaun himself. The scene which illustrates this the best is when Shaun has to make a plan on how to save his family. He goes through many scenarios of how he could do that. In the first one, the plan is to go to Liz's apartment, have a cup of tea, and wait out the storm. But because Ed doesn't want to stay somewhere he can't have a smoke, they essentially end up going back to the Winchester pub. And it really doesn't get much better than that. The tea and the beer are not the main drivers of the story, they only serve to amplify them. The characters and the plot is the important part everyone focuses on, but without the tea and beer it wouldn't matter nearly as much as it does. When Shaun visits his mom's to rescue her from the apocalypse, she offers to make him a cup of tea and asks if he wants sugar in it. He annoyingly reminds her that he hasn't had tea with sugar since 1992. This scene solidifies the fact and idea that Shaun has grown up and that his mother still refuses to accept it. Shaun's stepfather Philip has been bitten by a zombie, and Shaun may not be able to save the only parent he has. So the tea could have been easily left out, but it wasn't, because without it the scene would have felt dry and boring. And in films, small elements like that are everywhere. Routines that we engage in on a day-to-day basis are as important as the big things we often don't even get to experience. Because it doesn't matter which character or world it is, as long as those little details are there, you will always be able to find some sort of common ground with the story. A character can be totally different from you, but if they subtly do the things you also do, they will be much easier to understand and follow. For example, Fox Mulder from The X-Files loves to eat sunflower seeds. It is something that in no way changes his beliefs or motivations. What it does change is the relationship with the audience. His habit, as insignificant as it might seem, makes him more human. I find it to be relatable because I enjoy them too, whereas another person might think about a friend they had that enjoyed them, or literally any other life experience that involves that particular thing. Therefore, these habits aren't there to make the story better or make a character more likable. They are there to make sure you have at least something in common with the main characters and the world itself, no matter how it ends or progresses, because those are the things you might disagree with. When I was working on this video, I happened to watch a film called The Rainmaker, so naturally I decided to see if I could spot those same elements being used, and they were everywhere. The most obvious example being when Danny DeVito is having dinner with his colleagues, and instead of having wine like everyone else, he has iced tea. It's a few seconds of the entire movie, but to me it totally changes his character. Up till that point he was this crooked, ambulance-chasing lawyer that might or might not be involved in some really bad stuff. But after the scene, those doubts and prejudices disappeared. Granted, it was in part because the conversation in that scene is about him not being involved, but what helped sell that, to me at least, was the iced tea. It projected onto him this almost innocent attribute. The plot of a story is the extraordinary part. It's what draws you in and what you remember most. But the meaning of a story comes from the ordinary, which is perfectly summarized by Gandalf in the first Hobbit movie. It is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay, small acts of kindness and love. It is a quote that sheds light on the value of the mundane. The context for it being tied into the story of The Hobbit, the films and books' portrayal of kindness versus power and wrath, but it also fits the context of this video, because small ordinary routines are what make the big things matter. Without your cup of tea or coffee in the morning, the rest of the day doesn't really matter. If that small core part of life disappears, it takes with it a small part of everything else. And it isn't just big budget films where you might find this reality, but you see it in TV shows, books, and even video games. In Fallout 4, for example, one of the most iconic beverages is the classic Nuka-Cola. The endgame item doesn't really do anything. If anything, the 200-year-old beverage gives you rads and a small bit of nostalgia for better times. But the reason I bring it up is that the Nuka-Cola has become a staple of the Fallout universe. Something as simple as a derivative Coca-Cola brand is as recognizable as the video game itself. And Fallout isn't the first one to take inspiration from existing brands, but it is the only one that managed to make them as popular and important. Because, for example, in the Grand Theft Auto universe, you also see plenty of derivative brands, ones from Sprite, Coca-Cola, and many others. But the thing about them is that they aren't nearly as memorable. GTA as a game is far more popular than Fallout, but very few brands within GTA come close to the cultural footprint of Nuka-Cola. The reason for this is that Fallout incorporates Nuka-Cola within the gameplay experience. It isn't just a dusty poster here and there, because when you play Fallout games, there often are moments where your survival might literally depend on Nuka-Cola, whereas in GTA those brands only serve to fill the world and make it feel alive. Therefore, they are there to make the world feel real, but you don't remember them. And this is how something as simple as a beverage can significantly impact the stories and worlds which we enjoy. I don't think GTA did anything wrong. In fact, they utilized these boring elements in a way that was true to their game and its world. And that is the invisible trick every single story uses. Personally, I somehow always noticed and paid attention to it. Whenever Bilbo Baggins has a nice dinner or Frodo is making tea for himself and Gandalf, it makes me feel fulfilled. It's not only that the characters become familiar, but the world itself feels like my own. It becomes a familiar place that I have somehow visited before. And I have used this trick myself without even knowing it, because in many of my videos I put various generic clips of people eating or drinking and it just felt right. But after I put my head down and started doing research for this topic, I realized what I had been unknowingly doing all along. So whenever you are watching a film or engaging with any story, keep an eye out for those small details. Noticing them won't break the immersion. If anything, it will tell you something crucial about the story, and you will know why you feel the way you do. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you think about this topic, or maybe you have unanswered questions or suggestions. In any case, check out the channel for more in-depth videos like this. Live long and prosper.